What is going on? Welcome to Cinema Recap. Hope you're doing well. Today we're going to check out that 2006 action-adventure crime movie, Snakes on a Plane. A witness is being flown from Honolulu to LA to testify against a mob boss, and an FBI agent has to take on a plane full of deadly venomous snakes. Spoilers ahead. Our movie starts on a nice summer day. A beat-up dude who's a prosecutor is being hung upside down in the middle of the jungle. A man named Sean finds him and approaches him trying to help out, but the prosecutor stops him and tells him to go away while he still has a chance. Now a couple of goons show up, followed by an infamous mobster, Edward Kim, who beats that man up further, blaming his guts. Eddie ends up killing the man, and Sean, who was discreetly witnessing that murder, runs away and flees on his dirt bike. The bad guys heard him, but Sean had already escaped before they could get him. Now Sean's at home watching the news, talking about the same incident he saw before his eyes. While this forged story being displayed by the media makes him scared and shocked, he looks through the peephole when he hears someone at the door. When he finds that it's the same guys from yesterday, he quickly backs away trying to find a hiding spot. But suddenly, someone shuts his mouth from behind him and pulls him in. The man threatens Sean to remain silent and do as he says in order to live. He helps Sean escape while they're taking cover. Now Sean's confused about what's going on. I mean, the guy just let a murderer walk free, so not sure what he was expecting. Now this man introduces himself as FBI agent Neville Flynn. The agent drives them to the FBI agency and has Agent Sanders ask him about the details from the murder. Sean's made-up alibi isn't accepted, and Flynn says that it'll be best if he just testifies in LA. That was the only way for Sean to not get killed by Eddie Kim. So Sean agrees, and they're on their way to board the flight to LA, flying on South Pacific Airlines. However, the flight's delayed for a while. One of the flight attendants, Claire, is on her last day. And oh boy, will it be memorable. One of the pilots informs the flight attendant that the FBI is escorting someone to LA, and they would be taking over the business class area, which meant that all first-class passengers have to move back to coach. Agent Flynn and Sean board that flight and head to their business class seats. Now Flynn receives a call from Harris, who's a retired agent. Harris reassures him that Eddie Kim was in good hands and wouldn't get a chance to escape anytime soon. Eddie, on the other hand, has other plans. Pre-boarding, a bunch of garlands are sprayed on. Passengers are greeted with floral leaves as they walk in to board the flight. There's some contrasting personalities on this flight. We have a cranky businessman who can't seem to stop complaining about flying coach, a lady with a dog, a mother and her baby, and the celebrity rapper 3Gs walks in with two of his bodyguards. Now a little boy and his older brother also board the flight. Their father informs Claire that it's their first time flying alone, and she comforts the kids. After all the passengers are settled down, the flight attendant begins to demonstrate all safety measures in case of an emergency, and then the plane finally takes off. Now one of the flight attendants, Tiffany, sits down with Sean and shares a drink. They start talking about Eddie Kim and some of the gruesome acts highlighting his reputation. She's caught off guard when Sean mentions that he's a witness for Eddie's prosecution, but Tiffany finds it rather appealing. Now hidden deep in the luggage, we see a timer. And that ticking clock is completely surrounded by deadly snakes. Wonder what would happen if they got set free. Back in coach, Claire and Grace begin to clear out the food trays. Claire reminisces on how she'll miss all this after her last day. Maybe she spoke too soon. The timer down below has less than 3 minutes left on it. Sean had mentioned to Flynn about his plans to visit Bali before this whole testimony thing came up. Flynn strikes up a conversation and talks about his own visit to Bali and how nice the place is, subtly rubbing salt on his canceled plans. Now Flynn starts to walk around the plane and happens to come across Claire. She was annoyed by the FBI taking over first-class seats, but Flynn jokes with her and then proceeds to walk around some more. And so it happens. That timer there ultimately goes off. An explosion breaks the barrier holding the snakes in place. All of them surrounding the area are let loose. And the fun begins. The aircraft starts to experience a minor turbulence, and Claire goes to check up on the matter. The captain of the flight tells her that they lost the board, so he goes ahead to reset the breakers. Rick, the co-pilot, gives him a cue when everything's back to working conditions. And right when he's done taking care of that matter, he's attacked by a snake plunging at him, biting at his neck. Claire hears him collapse and calls out to Rick, who checks up on the issue. He sees the captain lying unconscious on the ground and tells Claire that maybe he just had a heart attack. So that's some great news to share with the rest of the crew. Claire calls Agent Flynn and Sanders to the cockpit and informs them how they found the captain dead. Well, Flynn thinks that they should fly back to Honolulu, but it was already too long in the journey and flying towards LA would be a smarter decision. All the passengers slowly begin to panic with ongoing turbulence. Claire comes back to check up on the two boys, Tommy and Curtis, and she calms them down by suggesting a fun game. Well, here's a fun game for our adult viewers. Go ahead and take a shot every time you hear the word snake throughout the rest of this video. Snakes start to slide by the pilot's gears, and Rick shoos them away with a piece of paper and aggressive hitting. Come on, Rick, piece of paper. Chaos breaks out in the plane when the oxygen masks fall down. But that ain't the only thing falling down, because here we have a wonderful bunch of deadly snakes. Passengers are screaming when the snakes attack them violently. Sanders steps out of first class to have a look at the commotion and, well, he's shocked to be met with those snakes coming at him. One of the passengers pulls out a barf bag, and right when she opens it up, her mouth agape, a snake catches onto her throat. And, well, that's the end of her. Would her last words be considered onomatopoeia? Passengers are running around in attempts to escape, but these deadly reptiles bite and kill them. Now, as Agent Flynn comes to Sanders' rescue, he heroically grabs and flings the snakes away. Sanders tells Flynn that he has ophidiophobia, a fear of snakes. Well, geez, Sanders, so does everyone else on that plane fighting for their lives. Except for Flynn, perhaps. Now, snakes are falling through the compartments, and passengers are getting severely injured. One of them announces for everyone to move to the front of the plane as it was a safer, no-snake zone there. Flynn walks towards the coach area, taser in hand to fight these snakes off, zapping them every time they try to attack. He urges everyone to cautiously move forward, but Americans, being Americans, push against one another to get to the front, causing a stampede. If snakes on the plane weren't enough to kill you, well, we got some crazy people that'll do the job. People on the plane do everything they can think of to defend themselves against these things. One of them even goes ahead and frantically shoves a snake into the microwave, exploding it, which was quite the sight. Flynn quickly thinks of a game plan to tackle the chaos. He tells everyone that they have to set up a barrier between them and the snakes in order to defend themselves. Everyone grabs suitcases and bags to build a wall. Now, Claire searches for Tommy and Curtis, worried about their safety. When she and Flynn find him, Tommy's bitten. The siblings are in a state of despair and terror. Now, a snake inches away from attacking a baby but is discovered by Grace. She rescues that baby, but unfortunately gets bitten herself. Now, Flynn picks up Sanders and hopes to save his life, but he dies soon after. Flynn calls up Harris to inform the awful news of Sanders' death. Harris is assuring a rescue and backup team to LA, and he gathers his team and asks them to find the best person to figure these snakes out. The snake bite on Tommy's wrist swells up. And to take care of the poison, the mother of the baby does this traditional process. She first intakes olive oil into her mouth and then oozes out the wound. She then proceeds by sucking out the poison and then spits it out. Sean, along with everyone else, is frustrated by all this, and Flynn asks him to just stay put and not do anything for the time being. His survival is the main agenda for Flynn and all the FBI involved. He couldn't have Sean put himself in danger. Now the snakes begin to make their way through the luggage wall, so Agent Flynn starts shooting them with a fire extinguisher. Harris finds out about a specialized scientist, Dr. Price, who could help him with these snakes. Yeah, I don't think this doctor ever expected such a scenario. So Dr. Prince gets on the phone with Flynn, who has no time to waste and asks for fast answers. Prince explains that snakes don't necessarily attack until they feel provoked. Flynn mentions the lease filled on the aircraft, and this catches the attention of the doctor. He tells him that they must have been sprayed on with a pheromone to trigger the snakes, also explaining to Flynn the different kinds of reactions to snake poison. But Agent Flynn snaps back, claiming that, he's not a zoologist. He tells him that he'll try to find a few different dead snakes to speed up the process in figuring out the antivenoms. Passengers down at coach start to get jittery and angry at the mess created. They force themselves upstairs into first class and ask Agent Flynn for answers. But Sean interferes and speaks of his involvement with Eddie Kim. The sound of his name deflates all hope left in him. But Flynn takes charge and tells him to quit arguing and devises the plan to get out of there alive. Now the pilot Rick is suddenly attacked by a pretty big snake and stumbles down trying to fight it. When Claire goes up to check on him, she finds the cockpit empty, only later realizing that Rick was attacked. That same snake comes for her and she falls back in fear. The plane's crashing down and Flynn orders everyone to immediately sit down and buckle up. Claire reaches out for a hammer placed in the corner and manages to kill the snake. Flynn gets there and tells her they need to take care of the aircraft. With all their might, they pull on the steering in order to halt the crash. Now the snakes are starting to get closer to the passengers, and Sean tells everyone to head up to business class where it's a little safer. But more people are attacked amidst running upstairs. Just then, a snake, the biggest one yet, falls down on him and attacks the grumpy businessman from earlier. Well, what goes around comes around. You shouldn't be complaining about flying coach. Cost him his life. That's karma. After much struggle, Flynn and Claire manage to stop the plane from crashing down. Rick shows up with one functioning arm and is adamant to help. He takes over his role as the pilot and orders Claire and Flynn to go and take care of the rest. A life raft is pulled out to create a new barrier against these things. Pictures of the snakes are mailed to Dr. Prince, who explains to Harris how these snakes were from all over the world, making that anti-venom hard to acquire. Great, so go ahead and add that to the list of problems. The air conditioning's failing on the plane, and the engines are almost failing as well. There's still a lot of snakes on that plane. But wait, it gets worse. Rick explains to Flynn that he'll have to manually fix the air situation and there's no other way to do it. Sucks to be you, is all Rick offers as motivation to Flynn. On top of all the problems, the heat is starting to get to everybody, making him restless. The rapper's first on board to lose all his cool and manages to take Agent Flynn's gun. He holds it up, threatening all of them. And then his buddy calms him down, so he sits back down in place. Claire breaks down when she sees Grace lose consciousness and pass away. But don't worry, you can see more of her in the Insidious series. Flynn heads down the plane to take a look at that electrical panel and fix the AC. Now Claire guides him along the way. When he gets there, he finds that the lever's stuck and there are snakes ready to attack him. Whoever's still standing from the drinking game, brava. So Flynn over here kills him with a flamethrower and gets working on that panel lever. We have Harris on a quest to find a cure to this madness. He hunts down the illegal trader who sold the snakes to Eddie Kim. Harris gets on the line with Flynn and fills him in on the details. He says the anti-venom is ready and waiting for him in LA. But as they go ahead to share that good news with Rick in the cockpit, they find him dead with snakes surrounding the place. Man was barely holding on to life with his half-bitten limbs, and now he's gone for good. R.I.P. Claire's asking whether anyone on the plane knows how to ride this thing. Luckily, they soon find a replacement for Rick to fly the plane. But before that, they have to clear out the snakes in the cockpit, and Flynn had had enough. He pulls out his gun and tells everyone to open the windows. He then secures everyone in position and shoots the windows open before opening the door to the cockpit, releasing these things. And these snakes are forced out of the aircraft. Everyone's holding on for dear life as that air sucks them out. Now we have Troy flying the plane, managing to steady the aircraft. FYI, his qualifications for handling this plane was being a pro at a virtual flight simulator on the PS. But good news, cause he lands that plane just fine. Well, almost. So after they land, the police and ambulance are quick to arrive and help the passengers get out safely. Dr. Price arrives at the scene, all the anti-venom in their possession. Price helps out with Tommy's severe bite wound by injecting the required amount into the boy's wrist. As things start to look calm, Agent Flynn goes ahead and thanks Sean for everything and for making it out alive. But he spoke too soon because the next thing you know, Sean's attacked by a snake. He survived the entire movie, but just couldn't hold off for the last few minutes. He shoots him in order to kill the snake, making him fall back down the evacuation slide. Everyone immediately gathers around him to take a look, but guess what? He didn't die, so go Sean. Luckily, he was wearing a bulletproof vest, which, protected him. In the end, Sean takes Flynn surfing in what we assume to be his dream vacation in Bali. He shows Flynn how it's really done this time. But the real conclusion is the next time you fly South Pacific, just don't. And that wraps it up. Snakes on a Plane, released in 2006 by New Line Cinema, starring Sam Jackson, Juliana Margulies, and Nathan Phillips. Thanks for watching. Till next time.